Hello. Ah, mm, okay. Here I am. Showing the people. Hey. Hey, them. What you doing? Hello, hello. I want to start with an apology. I was supposed to stream yesterday, but some things happened, so I couldn't anymore. But I'm here now, so that's what's important. Okay. Well, let's see. What did I have in package for today? So, we're gonna start strong with a very nice. I'm not playing today. I'm doing this little series that I started a while ago. It's the second episode where I'm talking about nerdy things. Last episode, I talked about things like quantum entanglement, dark matter, Jupiter's moon, and stuff like that. Today, we're talking about something else. Today, I'm going to start with time dilation and relativity. So, time dilation is the idea that time does not pass at the same rate for everyone. As you probably know that already. Everyone has a different kind of the way they perceive the time. For some people it goes faster, for other people it goes slower. It depends on speed and gravity. This comes from Albert Einstein's theories of relativity. And there are two main types. We have this first one, which is special relativity, speed-based time dilation, from Einstein's 1905 theory of special relativity. The faster you move, the slower time passes for you, relative to someone at rest. So I don't know if any of you, like anybody who is like friends, not friends, familiar with um, the Flash from DC. It's basically what's happening with Flash. Because he's moving faster, the time passes slower for him. It's kind of the same thing. And the whole idea with Flash is kind of based around that. So that's cool. So, how it works: as an object approaches the speed of light, time slows down for it. Length contracts. Don't think of nasty stuff. And then mass, more precisely energy, increases. Again, don't think about nasty stuff. We're being serious today. So, if you traveled at 90% the speed of light, time for you would pass much slower than for people on Earth. If you traveled extremely close to light speed, years might pass on Earth. Only months or less pass for you. Light speed is the cosmic speed. Nothing with mass can reach it. And then we have the twin paradox. So imagine twins. One stays on Earth, one travels near light speed and returns. The traveling twin is younger. This effect has been extremely confirmed with high-speed particles and atomic clocks on airplanes and satellites. So as I said, it's basically like, as I said, for who's more familiar with The Flash from DC, it's basically what's the whole like comic series based on. The idea of that, the special relativity. Now, we have general relativity, which is the second part, the second type, gravity-based time dilation. In 1915, Einstein expanded his theory into general relativity. The stronger the gravity, the slower time passes. So, basically, when something is like heavier, the heavier something is, the slower it moves. That's a bit mean, but you know what I mean. Mass bends space-time. Near massive objects, clocks tick slower, time runs slower compared to faraway observers. Near something extremely massive, like a black hole, the effect becomes dramatic. So, we have an extreme example here. So, near a black hole. If you hovered near a black hole, but didn't fall in, hours for you would equal years far away. So near the event horizon, time dilation becomes enormous. And to a distant observer, if an object falling towards a black hole appears to slow down and freeze at the edge. So if you want to know like a real life world proof, we have the GPS. Your phone's GPS works only because engineers correct for time dilation through satellites. The satellites move fast, special relativity, clocks slow slightly, and are higher in Earth's gravity, general relativity, clocks run faster. And without corrections, GPS would drift by kilometers per day. As you know, when you are like on your GPS, you're getting real life activity through the satellite. Otherwise, you wouldn't know what the fuck is happening. Imagine this: your GPS doesn't work how it should be, and you end up in traffic, and you didn't even know because your GPS was like saying, "No, it's okay, all good, you can go." But when you get there, it's actually traffic, or God forbid, it's an accident or something like that. So, there you go. So what this really means? Time is not universal. So there is no single cosmic now, and no universal ticking clock. Time is woven together with space into space-time. Your motion and location in gravity literally change how fast you age. So, since we talked about the black holes, have you ever wondered what happens inside one? How is time inside a black hole? So time near a black hole is strange. Time inside one is even stranger. So yeah, let's walk carefully towards the abyss. That's what's happening. So first, what we know from outside. Near a black hole, gravity wraps space-time to severely that clocks near it tick slower compared to faraway observers. At the event horizon, time appears to freeze from the outside. If someone falls in, a distant observer sees them slow, redden, and fade. But that is an optical illusion caused by the extreme space-time stretching. So you have to first cross the event horizon. Here's the crucial twist. From the falling person's perspective, nothing special happens at the event horizon, assuming a large black hole, yeah? So no wall, no flash, no cosmic buzzer. You simply pass the boundary. But once inside, the structure of space-time changes fundamentally. So, when you get inside, time and space swap roles. Outside the black hole, you can move freely in space, you cannot stop moving forward in time. Inside the event horizon, moving towards the singularity becomes an inevitable as moving into the future. The singularity is not just a place in space, it is a point in your future. You cannot avoid it, and trying to avoid the singularity inside the black hole, it's like trying to avoid tomorrow. All possible paths lead there. Now, you got to the singularity. At the center lies the singularity, predicted by general relativity, where density becomes infinite, space-time curvature becomes infinite, known physics break down. The equations from Albert Einstein's theory predict this result, but they also signal their own failure there. We need quantum gravity to know what truly happens. So, what happens to time at the singularity? We don't know yet. Possibilities physics explore: time simply ends, space-time transitions into something else, the singularity is replaced by a quantum structure, or it connects to another region of space-time. But current physics cannot describe it consistently. We don't have actual proof of what actually happens once you reach the singularity. So, from the inside perspective, if you fell into a supermassive black hole, you would cross the horizon normally. You would inevitably reach the singularity. The time between crossing and destruction could be minutes or hours depending on the size. For small black holes, tidal forces would tear you apart before you can even cross. This stretching effect is sometimes nicknamed spaghettification. You become a noodle, or multiple noodles, depends. Nobody wants to become noodles. I don't recommend it. Anyway, the deepest takeaway. Inside the black hole, the idea of future points inward. The singularity is not somewhere you could avoid. It is when you arrive. Time does not loop. It does not stop for you. It marches forward. But forward now points towards crushing curvature. And at the singularity, our understanding of time itself dissolves. So, yeah. So, yeah, this is what happens with this kind of stuff. Hey. Now that we covered this, maybe you people wanted to know more about black holes and other fun ones. Now you do. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next subject. The next one is transhumanism. It's not doesn't have no, it doesn't have anything to do with actual trans people. Transhumanism is the idea that humans can and should use advanced technology to enhance physical and cognitive abilities, overcome biological limits, and possibly transcend current human constraints like aging and disease. It's both a philosophical movement and a technological vision of the future. So, what are the core goals of this? Transhumanists often focus on enhancing intelligence, like AI, improving physical performance for athletes, eliminating disease, like cancer, extending lifespan, radically in some visions, and merging humans with machines. Some even envision a future where humans evolve into a new stage, post-human. So, what are some key ideas about this? Is a radical life extension, using biotechnology, gene editing, or cellular repair to slow or reverse aging, like they do in cyberpunk. Brain-computer interfaces, direct links between the brain and machines. Companies like Neuralink are developing implantable brain interfaces to treat neurological disorders and potentially enhance cognition in the future. As I said, we're talking about things that are already happening in cyberpunk. So imagine basically transhumanists are basically people who want a future for humanity that would be very, very close to what's happening in the cyberpunk universe. Anyway, the third thing would be mind uploading. The hypothetical idea of scanning a brain and running its structure in a computer. This overlaps with questions about identity and consciousness because we all know it's not just the brain that does the work in a human body. We have artificial intelligence integration. Advanced AI could amplify human decision making, merge with cognition, and eventually surpass biological intelligence. So, yeah, basically what's happening right now. But we also have some intellectual roots. Modern transhumanism was shaped by thinkers like Nick Bostrom and Ray Kurzweil. Kurzweil predicts a future singularity where technology growth becomes explosively transformative. But supporters argue, of course, they do. Humanity has always enhanced itself, classes, medicine, education. Extending health and intelligence reduces suffering, which is a good thing. Technological evolution is a natural continuation of biological revolution. Might be. It could allow humanity to survive long-term cosmic risks, which is very true. So basically, people say, the supporters argue that it will basically enhance the human life. But we also have critics, and the critics say that it could deepen inequality, enhanced versus non-enhanced humans, which we know is happening in cyberpunk. It risks a loss of human identity or meaning. Technological power may outpace ethical maturity, and it could introduce existential risks, especially via AI or biotech. Some biotechs warn that radical enhancement could destabilize social systems. Which is true. Again, we know what's happening in cyberpunk. Let's be for real. So, we also have some deep questions. Transhumanism forces us to ask. Hi, Arby. What you doing? So yeah, we have the deep questions. So transhumanism forces us to ask, what does it mean to be human? Is aging a disease or part of identity? Should we improve nature or accept it? If consciousness can be engineered, is biology still central? Okay, I'm glad you're finishing your breakfast. I hope you enjoy it. So, we have the big picture. Transhumanism sees humanity not as a finished product, but as a transitional phase. In this view, evolution doesn't stop with biology, it becomes intentional. So, let's answer some of the questions that we said earlier. So, first question is, what does it mean to be human in this case? So, it's one of the deepest questions we can ask. And there is not one answer. There are layers. The first one would be biologically. From a scientific standpoint, to be human is to belong to the species Homo sapiens. Biologically, we are carbon-based organisms, highly social primates, large-brained mammals, products of evolution. But biology feels like the outer shell of the question. It tells us what we are made of, not what we are. Cognitively, humans have unusual mental capacities, abstract reasoning, self-awareness, symbolic language, long-term planning, moral reflection. We don't just experience the world, we think about experiencing it. We imagine futures that don't exist. We remember pasts that are gone, and we ask questions, like this one. uh, Emotionally, to be human is to feel love, grief, awe, shame, hope, and many more. We form deep bonds. We suffer from loss. We care about meaning. Emotions isn't a glitch in the system. It's central to how we navigate reality. Socially, humans are profound interdependent. We create cultures, build shared myths, transmit knowledge across generations, and construct laws and moral systems. No human develops in isolation. We are shaped by language, tradition, and community. Morally, we evaluate actions as right or wrong. We feel responsibility, we experience guilt and aspiration, and we don't just survive, we judge how we survived. Existentially, this may be the most distinctive layer. Hello, Kenny. Yeah, we are doing my second episode of Talk Dirty to Me. Talk Nerdy to Me. Sorry, Talk Nerdy to Me. Basically, I'm taking different subjects from science and technology, and I discuss them for my chat. I expand their knowledge. And we're talking about now, we have a very nice question of what it means to be human. And we got to the sixth point. Yeah. We got the sixth point, which is existentially. This may be the most distinctive layer. Humans seem uniquely aware that we will die, the universe is vast, meaning is not automatically given. We live in tension between insignificance and self-importance. We are tiny in cosmic scale, yet capable of contemplating galaxies and black holes. So, we have also a modern pressure on the question. So now that AI exists, genetic engineering and transhumanism, the boundaries are shifting. If intelligence can be artificial, if bodies can be modified, if minds can be uploaded, then is being human about biology, consciousness, continuity, vulnerability, or mortality? So, we have a possible core. Many philosophers suggest that being human is not about any single trait. It may be about a cluster of qualities: self-awareness, narrative identity, having a story about yourself, moral agency, emotional depth, social embedment. Perhaps being human is less about perfection and more about fragile, self-aware striving in a finite life. Which many people should understand that that's what it's about. You know, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. And you have to, you know, and a simple answer: to be human might mean that you know you exist, you know you will end, and you choose how to live anyway. So stop stressing so much about it. So let's go to the next question that we were having earlier. Is aging a disease or just part of identity? This question sits right at the crossroads of biology, philosophy, and transhumanism. And there are two different ways to see aging. And aging can be seen as a disease. From a biomedical perspective, aging looks measurable and mechanistic. Cells accumulate damage, DNA mutations, protein misfolding, telomere shortening, mitochondrial decline, and senescent. Zombie cells. And these processes increase risk for cancer, heart disease, neurodegeneration, frailty, and so many more. Some researchers argue aging is the underlying cause of most major diseases, so treating aging itself could prevent many conditions at once. Scientists like David Sinclair advocate targeting biological aging directly. From this view, if something causes suffering, decline, and death, and we can intervene, why wouldn't we treat it? In this framework, aging is a pathology we have normalized. The second way you can look at it is that aging is part of identity. Philosophically, aging is not just cellular wear. It is memory accumulating, perspective deepening, and identity unfolding over time. You are not the same person at 10 or at 30 or at 70. Aging shapes your personality, your values, relationships, and even your meaning. Without aging, there are no life arcs, no childhood, no maturity, or adulthood. Many traditions view mortality as essential to human significance. For example, philosopher Martin Heidegger argued that awareness of death gives urgency and authenticity to life. If life were endless, would choices feel as weighty? Would it really matter for us anymore? So, we have the core tension. If aging is a disease, extending life is moral progress, suffering is reducible, and death becomes optional. But if aging is identity, finite life gives shape to meaning, generations renew culture, and mortality structures purposes. So, a middle view. Some propose separating aging-related suffering, disease, frailty, dementia, from temporal finitude, having a limited lifespan. In other words, eliminate decline but keep finitude. Basically, let's not become immortal. Let's just advance the life. Radical life extension without biological decay. But even then, identity changes. If you lived 300 years, would you remain psychologically continuous? Would relationships and ambition feel different? And will society still function the same way? Imagine if somebody would be able to live for hundreds of years. So, this debate isn't really about wrinkles. It's about whether limits are flaws to overcome or limits are structures that make meaning possible. If humans become ageless, are we liberated or transformed to something fundamentally different? There's no consensus. Biologically says aging is damage. Existential philosophy says aging is narrative. So, the real question might be, if you could stop aging tomorrow, would you choose it? Also, the thing that I said earlier, the little subjects that we have in the transhumanism is basically imagine what's happening in cyberpunk. That's basically what it is. Imagine how the people in cyberpunk are. So the next question was, should we improve nature or just accept it? The question has been debated for thousands of years, and there isn't a simple answer because it depends on what we mean by nature and improve. So let's unpack it. So, the case of accepting nature. Many philosophical and spiritual traditions argue that nature has intrinsic value and wisdom. In Tao Te Ching, harmony comes from aligning with the natural order rather than forcing change. Stoic thinkers like Marcus Aurelius taught that peace comes from accepting what we cannot control. So, from this view, suffering and aging are part of the human condition. Limits shape character. Trying to dominate nature can create unintended harm, and humility is wiser than control. Historically, technological overreach has sometimes damaged ecosystems, societies, and even human well-being, as we all know and have seen. Acceptance can mean living wisely within limits rather than attempting to erase them. Basically, just be grateful for what you got. But we also have the case of improving nature. That here's the counterpoint. Human history is the story of improving nature. Medicine improved survival, agriculture improved food security, clean water system improved public health, and vaccines eliminate deadly diseases. If we simply say, accept nature, smallpox will still exist. Thank you, Kenny. Good luck to work. And thank you for the follow. So, from this perspective, reducing suffering is a moral obligation. Thinkers in the transhumanism tradition, like Nick Bostrom, argue that using technology to enhance human capacities is a continuation of evolution, but guided by intelligence rather than randomness. Nature is not automatically benevolent. It produces diseases, it produces earthquakes, it produces genetic disorders. Why should we treat those as sacred? So the deeper tension would be, the disagreement isn't really about medicine or agriculture, it's about where to draw the line. Treating disease, most agree. Enhancing intelligence, debatable. Editing embryos for traits, more controversial. Uploading minds, radical transformation. At some point, improving nature may stop being improvement and start being redesign. So, we also have a third option, guided stewardship. Some propose a middle path. Accept that we are part of nature, recognize we already alter it, because we do, intervene carefully and ethically, prioritize reducing suffering, preserve ecological and human meaning. Not domination, not passive acceptance, but responsibility. We also have the meta question. We are nature. When humans change biology or build AI, is that unnatural or simply nature becoming self-modifying? Maybe the real question is not improve or accept, but improve what, for whom, and at what cost. And now we have last question. Also, I just realized, yeah, I made it to 50 followers. Thank you. The last question is, if consciousness can be engineered, is biology still central? And this is a profound question because it forces us to separate consciousness, biology, and identity, which we usually treat as inseparable. Let's explore it carefully. First, what makes biology central now? Right now, biology is central because consciousness, as far as we know, arises in biological brains. Emotions are shaped by hormones and nervous systems. Memory and personality are embodied. And mortality structures our lives. Our experience is not just mental, it is also bodily. Hunger affects mood. It does. Sleep affects thought. Pain shapes decisions. And aging shapes perspective. So, biology is not just a container for consciousness, it deeply influences it. So, if consciousness could be engineered, suppose we could create consciousness artificially, in silicon, in synthetic neural tissue, or in a hybrid brain-machine system, which is the most possible. Then biology would no longer be the only substrate for awareness. This possibility is taken seriously in philosophy of mind and AI research. Thinkers like David Chalmers argue that if consciousness arises from certain patterns or information processing, then substrate might not matter, only structure does. This is called the substrate independence. If true, biology is contingent, not essential. But biology may be more than hardware. And here's the counter argument. Biology isn't just processing power. It provides evolution-shaped emotional architectures, hormonal modulation, social bonding chemistry, development pathways from infancy to adulthood, embodied interaction with the environment. Even if you engineered consciousness, it might lack instinctive drives, evolutionary emotional depth, mortality-shaped urgency, and development vulnerability. Would such a being still have a human mode for existence? So, is being human about substrate or story? There are two broad positions. Functionalism. If it thinks, feels, reflects, and experiences like us, it counts. Biology is not central. And we have the embodied humanism. Our biological vulnerability, limits, and evolution-shaped traits are essential. Replace the substrate, and you alter the essence. So, the identity shift problem. If your brain were gradually replaced with synthetic components, neuron by neuron, at what point do you stop being biologically human? Is identity about continuity or consciousness, biological continuity, narrative continuity, or social recognition? If consciousness can migrate across substrates, biology becomes optional. But if embodiment shapes the very texture of experience, biology remains central. The deepest possibility, it may be that biology is central to human consciousness, but not to consciousness itself. So in that case, you would not eliminate biology. You will transcend it and create new forms of minded existence. But those forms might not be human in any traditional sense. You can create a consciousness, not a human one, but you can create one. So, biology gave rise to consciousness through billions of years of evolution. If consciousness engineers itself beyond biology, that would not be a rejection of nature. It would be nature becoming self-directed. The question then becomes, if we move beyond biology, do we expand humanity or just leave it behind? What do you think? Mm-hmm. We answer all the questions about transhumanism. Hope you're happy. Hope you feel more inspired. Hope you feel like you know more. Hope you rethink if you want a future like in Cyberpunk. I still do. Anyway. So, and with that, we talked about that. Let's go. Like we talked about future. Okay, let's talk about past. I hope you felt good in the future. We're going to the past now. Back to the past. We're gonna talk about bizarre ancient rituals. Are you ready for that? Let's grab the witchy stuff. Okay. I gotta take the trailer voice. Throughout history, many cultures practice rituals that seem strange, even shocking, from a modern perspective. But bizarre often just means outside our cultural frame. Most rituals had deep symbolic, ritual, spiritual, or social meaning. And here are some striking examples. Human sacrifice, the Aztecs. Beautiful, right? The best fucking beginning of something like that. Okay. The civilization of the Aztecs believed the sun required nourishment in the form of human blood to continue rising. Hearts were removed in temple ceremonies. Sacrifices were seen as cosmic duty, not cruelty, and victims were often war captives. To them, it sustained the universe itself. Mighty be the sun god. All hail to the sun god. This is fun. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Sky burials in the Tibetan tradition. In Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism, practiced in regions like Tibet, Bodies are placed on mountain tops to be consumed by vultures. Ha! The body is viewed as an empty vessel after death because it doesn't contain the soul anymore, you know. Feeding animals is considered an act of generosity, which this should be actually be just everywhere, really. It reflects impermanence and non-attachment. To outsiders, it can seem shocking. Within the tradition, it's sacred. So, yeah, think about it. Try a sky burial next time. Grandma died, no problem. We're gonna put her up on a mountain. The vultures will eat her. Anyway, we're gonna go to the next one, which is my favorite, mummification in the ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, preserving the body was crucial for the afterlife. Organs were removed and stored in canopic jars. The body was dried with natron. Tombs were filled with goods for the next world, and the physical body was believed necessary for the soul's survival. You want to know something funny? Back thousands of years ago, when my country was a tribe itself, we kind of did the same thing. You were put in a little box, a little wooden box, and the little wooden box was put in a marble box, and then the marble box was put in a in a stone one. So you were in a box, in a box, in a box, and then you were buried. And they were also like, just adorned with jewelry made out of gold. So funny enough how two cultures have so common things. I literally found out this last week because I went to a museum. I was as shocked as you were. Anyway. The next one. Tooth filling. Maya civilization. Hello, yes. Yes, Dan, what's your question? Would you rather be able to reshape time or reality? That's a good question. Huh. I mean, to be honest, it's sort of depending on a lot of stuff, to be honest. If you are able to reshape the time, then you will literally just be able to either go back in time, to make yourself younger or to make yourself older. Are you meaning like I can reshape time or reality for me or for other people? Because if I can also like do it for other people, that would be cool. But yeah, if you can reshape time, then you can just either make yourself look younger or older, depending on the situation. That would actually be pretty helpful. If you can reshape reality, you can basically just make it so you can like, for example, you really want something and you can just reshape the reality in order to get it. So that would be a little bit villainous. I don't know, man. It's a, it's a tricky question. I don't know. I really don't know. Like, they both have good things and bad things. I think that's the whole thing with like trying to make a decision. Really. Can you make a decision in anything? Because they both have like ups and downs, pros and cons. I think I will reshape the reality because, to be totally honest with you, I don't want to get back to be young that much, even though it was a good time when you were young. At the same time, I don't want to make myself grow old faster, God forbid. So I'd say the reality. Yeah. Final answer, I would reshape the reality. I'll make my life easier. Eh. What about you? What would you choose? Anyway, thank you, thank you. Okay, yeah, so the next one is tooth filling in the Maya civilization. Among the Maya civilization, elites sometimes filled their teeth into sharp or decorative shapes, sometimes inlaid with jade, a symbol of beauty and status, possibly spiritual significance. Painful, but culturally meaningful. Amazing! Why? Yeah, you would also say reality? Yeah, I know. I know. It's just shaping that time doesn't really. Nah. Nah, no. Anyway. Yeah, why would you do that? Why? I mean, they look cool, yeah. Imagine having sharp teeth, but at the same time, ow. Anyway, um, the next one would be widow self-immolation in Sati. In parts of historical India, a ritual known as Sati involved the widow immolating herself on her husband's funeral pyre. Not universal in India, often socially pressured rather than voluntary, eventually outlawed under British colonial rule, understandably so. It was framed as loyalty and purity, but remains highly controversial and tragic. I mean, yeah. Wait, what the fuck? Wait, give me a second. I wanna do something. Why would you do that? I mean, I understand. You love your husband, he died, okay, but lighting yourself on fire on his grave. No. Anyway, let's just go to the next one. Bloodletting rituals. Mesoamerica. The Maya civilization. We're going back to the Maya civilization. These guys are weird. And other practices ritual bloodletting. Rulers pierced tongues or genitals. Blood was offered to gods. It symbolized communication with the divine. Pain was seen as sacred transformation. Why do the Maya civilization likes pain so much? First the teeth, now the tongues? Bruh, chill. That's what I would tell them. Bro, chill, please. Anyway, the next one will be bull leaping. Minoan civilization. In Minoan civilization, art depicts acrobats vaulting over bulls. So, possibly a religious ritual, required immense athleticism, symbolized power of communion with nature. Whether ceremonial or sport, it was dangerous. Poor bulls. Now I am feeling bad for the bulls, to be honest. Is it though? Is it? Is it pain seen as purity? Wow. Okay. Well, that means I'm very pure because I've been suffering a lot. And anyway, why do there are so many extreme rituals? Ancient rituals often centered around death, fertility, survival, cosmic order, appeasing gods, or social cohesion. In harsh environments with limited scientific knowledge, ritual gave people control over uncertainty, meaning in suffering, and structure to life transitions. Ah, I heard about that. I heard pain in some religions and cultures is a sign of evil or sin leaving the body. What if I don't want to? What if I don't want to leave a body? I don't want to leave the body. I like bodies. That just sounds wrong. Anyway, a bigger perspective. Future generations might look at some of our practices, cosmetic surgery, extreme dieting, dangerous stunts, even warfare, as equally bizarre. Normal is always relative to time and culture, which is true. Like, what these people would consider normal, because, like, they were considering normal back then, because we're talking about, like, in ancient cultures. So yeah, for them it was normal back then. For us, it's just weird. Think about it. People in the future, maybe what we do now, they're gonna also consider it weird. Like maybe the burial things are gonna be different in the future. They're gonna be like, why you guys were burying people like bodies inside the ground? That's just wrong. No, it's not wrong. You actually help the ground. You help the ground a lot actually. I'm sorry. I know. I'm gonna see myself out now. Anyway, would you guys like to know more about like even darker ancient practices? Should we go even deeper into this or should we move to the next one? Yeah, I know. Depends on the region. So, shall we go darker into this or should we just move on from this? Dealer's choice. I can go darker if you want to. Oh, I think my music's finished. Gotta find a new one. Yeah, my music finished. I had to find a new playlist. Okay, let's go darker. If you guys want darker, I'll give you darker. Okay. So, history contains practices that can feel deeply disturbing today, but they usually emerge from specific beliefs about God's purity, power, or survival, not random cruelty. Here are some of the darker documented examples, with context. Because I know you love context. So, the ritual heart extraction. You know that we were talking about that earlier with the Aztecs? Well, the Aztecs conducted large scale human sacrifices. So, victims were laid on stone altars, hearts were removed while still beating, and blood was offered to sustain the sun god. All hail the sun god. To them, this was cosmic maintenance. Without it, the world might end. It was brutal, but sacred in their worldview. And let's not forget, they were just doing this to like war victims, or not victims, sorry, prisoners, war prisoners. So they weren't doing it to their own people. Child sacrifice. Carthage. Debated, but supported by evidence. Archaeological findings at sites linked to Carthage suggest ritual sacrifice of infants or young children. Burned remains found in urn cemeteries, taffets, possibly offerings to deities during crisis. Scholars still debate the scale in interpretation, but evidence points to ritualized child death in some cases. Yes, and they did on certain occasions. Yeah. You said darker, I give you darker. There you go. Anyway, Assyrian mass punishment. The Neo-Assyrian Empire used extreme violence as state policy. Inscriptions boast of public flailing, impalement, displaying severed heads, deportations of entire populations, And the goal was psychologically warfare, terror as governance. We know about those kind of things. We see them in different like historical movies and stuff like that. So this is not something uncommon. And I think they're still done, even like some tribes, even to this day. Why did you do that? Anyway, another one would be trepanation or skull drilling, practiced in multiple ancient cultures worldwide. Holes drilled into the skull, sometimes done on living individuals. Sometimes done on living individuals, possibly to release spirits or treat illness. Archaeological evidence shows some patients survived, meaning it was deliberate and skilled. But imagine undergoing it without anesthesia. Because they didn't have anesthesia back then. Beautiful, right? I feel sick. Doctor, what do you recommend? A hole in your skull. That sounds perfect. Anyway, retainer sacrifice. In ancient China, in early dynasties like the Shang dynasty, servants were buried alive with rulers, intended to serve the ruler in the afterlife. Human and animal sacrifices were common in royal tombs. Death was part of maintaining cosmic and political heresy. Oh, yes, I should not be buried only with my slave, be buried with me. I mean, think about it. That would be the only actual time we can actually touch your um, your royal, your boss. Endocannibalism. Some cultures practice ritual consummation of deceased relatives. For example, among the Fior people of Papua New Guinea, much later historically, consuming brain tissue as a funeral rite led to the prion disease kuru. The purpose: honor the dead, absorb their spirit or life force. To them, burial would have been the stranger act, right? So why should we bury him when there's free food? He's free food. No, that's wrong. Anyway, so why do societies develop practices like this? Dark rituals often appear when death is seen as transition, not end. The whole idea of like, no, reincarnation. Gods are believed to demand sacrifice because we know that people always thought that the gods wanted sacrifices. Power must be displayed dramatically because we do live for the drama, especially the rulers. Survival feels precarious. The idea of like, we must sacrifice them so we can thrive. Social cohesion depends on shared awe or fear. Extreme practices can unify a group, especially in uncertain worlds. So, the uncomfortable reflection: it's tempting to view ancient people as barbaric, but public executions existed in Europe until recently. Slavery was global. Human experimentation occurred in the 20th century. And modern warfare kills at industrial scale. Darkest is not confined to the ancient world. The form change. The capacity remains. Ha! Fun. Murder. Okay. I think you guys had enough of this. Because I know I did. So, we remain in the history and we would say that I will ask a question. Do you guys remember that video with that lady from a while ago that she was showing that the world map is wrong? Well, the next subject of today will be political bias in cartography. What? The political bias in cartography or the dark ways of rituals in the in history? I'll say the latter one. Anyway, so maps look objective. They aren't. Cartography has always been shaped by power, ideology, and perspective. A map doesn't just show territory, it frames reality. So, here's how political bias shows up. Yes, RB, I know you like blood. I'm aware. Projection bias, the Mercator effect. The most famous example is the Mercator projection. It preserves angles, useful for navigation, but massively distorts size near the poles. Greenland looks comparable to Africa. Europe and North America appear larger than they are. Africa and South America appear smaller. In reality, Africa is about 14 times larger than Greenland. This projection unintentionally reinforces an Eurocentric visual dominance. You know? Because of course North America and Europe, they need to look bigger. So, an alternative like the Gall-Peters projection preserves area, but distorts shapes instead. Every projection makes trade-offs. Choosing one emphasizes certain regions over others. As I said, of course Europe and North America, they have to look bigger. Especially Europe, knowing the fuckheads that discovered a lot of things throughout history. So, centering the map. Most world maps center Europe or the Atlantic, but maps centered on the Pacific, China, or the Middle East change how global relationships feel. A country at the center often appears geopolitically important, even though Earth has no natural center. So, borders and dispute territories. Maps often reflect political recognition. For example, Crimea may appear Russian or Ukrainian, depending on the publisher. Taiwan may be shown as separate or part of China, and Kashmir's boundaries vary by country. Cartographers must decide which government's claim counts. That decision is political. So, let's name conventions. Place names as powerful. Persian Gulf versus Arabian Gulf. Sea of Japan versus East Sea. Myanmar versus Burma. Names signal legitimacy and historical narrative. Maps reinforce those narratives. And now we go to the beautiful colonial mapping. European colonial powers, as I said earlier, drew borders in Africa and the Middle East with little regard for ethnic or cultural realities. For example, the Sykes-Picot Agreement divided Ottoman territories into spheres of influence. Many modern conflicts trace back to arbitrary lines drawn on imperial maps. Maps weren't just descriptive, they were tools of control. And unfortunately, they still are. And of course, data omission and emphasis exists. Maps can influence perception by highlighting certain cities, omitting minority populations, emphasizing military bases, and choosing color schemes strategically. A red country next to blue neighbors feels threatening, even if that's arbitrary. Visual design shapes emotional response. So, we also have the cognitive framing. Maps influence what feels big, what feels central, what feels peripheral, and who seems powerful. When children grow up, seeing Europe enlarged and centered, that subtly shapes worldview. Cartography is a psychological instrument. So, the big truth is that maps are not neutral mirrors of Earth. They are interpretations, abstractions, political artifacts, and tools of power. As geographer J.B. Harley argued, maps encode ideology just as texts do. So, a final reflection about this will be if you rotate a world map upside down, nothing physical changes. But your intuition does. That's how deeply maps shape perception. Food for the thought. But yeah, this was the last thing I wanted to talk about today. I mean, I was considering to talk about bioluminescence as well, but maybe next time. So, next week. It's getting late here, and I still have some other stuff to do. But this was fun. And I hope you had fun too. I hope I opened your brains and eyes to more things than before. I like to talk about this kind of stuff. And if you're wondering how many episodes from the Talk Nerdy to Me are left, it's either 1 or 3. I'm still not sure. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah. I hope you enjoyed, and because I did. Many thoughts, yes, many thoughts. A lot of food for your minds. So yeah, I hope you enjoy, because I surely did, and I'll see you next week with the next episode on Monday. Bye bye.